What's up, everybody? Welcome to another Mortgage Coach interview. I have three amazing professionals, all of which I've known for more than a decade, one of which I've known for a couple decades. I'll go with my oldest friend, Todd Ballenger. What's up, dude?
Hey, man. How are you?
I'm
Good to
doing
see you.
good. I'm
You haven't
doing
aged
good.
a day. You haven't aged a day.
Yeah, right. So Todd and I think we met over 25 years ago because it was in the very early stages of Mortgage Coach when I had founded it. And Todd has always been a visionary around turning advice into a competitive advantage, turning financial literacy, which is the headline of today's call, into a competitive advantage. And today he is the founder and creator of Certified Liability Advisor, the author of Borrow Smart. He's also a legit professor at a top university in North Carolina. What's the name of that little school that you're a professor for?
The University of North Carolina.
I know. It's pretty. They have a pretty good lacrosse team.
They do.
They're pretty good at a lot of stuff. And then we have two ballers that are in the trenches. Trevor, who I've known. God, Trevor, we've known each other for sure more than 10 years. I don't know if it's 20, but it's a long. It seems like a couple of lifetimes.
It's getting close. I mean, man, I was a top user of Mortgage Coach probably back in 04, 05, 06, all through. So that's 15 years plus.
So long time. And Trevor has been, an incredible student of Mortgage Coach. So he's been a mortgage coach. He's also been an incredible student, friend, and he's a coach. He coaches for Todd Duncan's High Trust organization. He's helping families make better decisions. And then I think the thing that really distinguishes Trevor in the marketplace is he's done just a spectacular job of creating a branch and a culture around advice. Like people that are on his team, they know how to turn financial literacy into a competitive advantage, and in a way that's pretty unique. Like there's just not a lot of branches in cultures like the one that Trevor has built. Trevor, what kind of production are you guys doing as a branch? And are you still doing production yourself?
We're going to hit we'll be close to 300 million this year, about 340 last year. A lot of growth still to be had. Maybe 3 years ago, I officially became a non-producing branch manager. I mean, I went all in, kind of inverting the normal game in this business where the branch manager is the top producer and everybody else is below them or him or her. And like, you know what, I'm going to help guys like James just do more than I ever did. And so my day is just coaching and supporting these guys.
Right on. Well, and Trevor was a mega producer when he was producing. And then, so now we've got mega producer, James Adair.
Oh boy.
Killing it. What kind of production are you doing, James?
This year, I think I'll probably be between 85 and 90 million total funded dollars. I don't know, units wise, maybe 220-ish, something like that. So pretty good. It's been an amazing run, obviously, since 2019, everything kind of just hit. And then 2020, it just went vertical, right? So I still feel like we're trucking along at that same clip.
Yeah, well, anyone that's helping over 200 families a year with a mortgage is pretty special and pretty successful. And then I think what distinguishes you is that everyone is getting a little more fiscally literate along the way.
I hope so.
So let's start with you. And how do you define turning advice or turning financial literacy into a competitive advantage? Just give me a minute or two on what does that mean to you at a high level?
Well, I always tell people it's pretty easy to get a mortgage, and there has to be, we all have to give thought to why would getting it through me make sense for the family? What's in it for them, and why? Like, how can I add value beyond just getting the mortgage, which is, like I said, the easy part. And I always tell people I add value in the margins. I add value in helping you understand how the mortgage industry works. I think a lot of people underestimate how much that unlocks the logic of the process for people, and it allows you to have those like real technical underwriting questions later in the process when they know how we're packaging these loans, selling to Fannie Mae, et cetera, and that informs the entire underwriting dynamic. So I make sure they know that. I make sure, they know that I've set my business up, my practice up to be like a financial advisor the same way. Like, I'm not here just to crank a transaction. I'm here to have a relationship, and I'm here to help you manage your real estate, your equity, your debt repayment for years to come after we close. And so we have a system and a conversation around that. And that's where the fiscal literacy becomes real value added, because it's a lot of people think, oh, I'm just going to sell this house and put all this cash down on this next house and get a 30-year fixed or a 15-year fixed. And I just want the lowest rate, and I'm like, well, being able to kind of back them up and show them the cost of thinking that way can really glue that client to you. And it's way more fun, and I think it's actually more, I'm helping people make more money through this process, and it's fun. It's, so to me, it's just it's better for everybody, me and them.
Love it. Love it. So Trevor, how would you do that? Let's so we get to the interview part, let's kind of do it in a minute or so. How would you define turning advice and financial literacy into a competitive advantage?
I'll go a little higher level because James is in the trenches every day. We have a couple of philosophies that I just live by, and I teach daily to my team, and guys like James. And one is, I believe that how you handle the borrowing and repayment of a mortgage impacts every other aspect of your personal finances. So I believe that. So we got to teach that. We better be really rock solid superstars at helping people then figure that out, what that means to them. And then I tell people a lot of times, whether it's a mortgage professional or a consumer, that you only make a borrowing decision probably maybe 4 or 5 times in your whole life, but you're making repayment decisions every month for 30, 40, maybe 50 or 60 years of owning real estate. And that's what we call a pattern interrupt, right? Like, whoa. And like, who's going to help make sure you've got the right repayment strategy in place once you borrow these hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of 4 or 5 homes? And that kind of sets the stage of, wow, how important is this? How important is understanding money as it relates to real estate and wealth creation and down payment decisions and all that?
Love it. Great answer. And Mr. Ballenger, how would you answer that?
You asked me that question on 30 different days. I'll probably give you 30 different answers, but there's a Southern preacher here that says, hey, people that say they don't care about money lie about other things too. We're in the money business. And that's, if you think you're in the mortgage business, just take any part of the lending process from that causes you anxiety. Like when they say, what's your interest rate? Or what are these closing costs all about, et cetera? I mean, these people care about money. And if they're borrowing, it's either because they can't pay cash or they can, and they've chosen not to pay cash, right? So, I mean, it's all about money decisions. And if you don't understand that and learn how to articulate that to the people that you're working with, you're missing a lot of the meat on the bone. You're chewing on the bone. You ought to be eating some of the meat. And the meat is the financial literacy. The meat is that ability to help people understand they want the lowest rate because they want the lowest payment. And the lowest payment means they have more cash flow. And they have more cash flow. That means they can do more life, something that they want to do, pay for their kids' college, piano lessons, whatever. But if you think you're in the business of selling interest rate, again, you're missing out on the real opportunity.
Love the answers. My answer, just to get my 2 cents on this, the name of Mortgage Coach, the company name, is actually called Wow Tools. And when I founded the business, turning mortgage advice into a competitive advantage was a tactic to get a consumer to go, wow, I never thought of my mortgage like that. Wow, I really trust you. To me, when it comes to turning advice into competitive advantage, the definition is when the consumer says, wow, I never thought of it that way. And whether they said it out loud, like every once in a while, you get that verbal expression of, oh my gosh, no one's ever told me that before. I never thought of that. But like you can see it when they're like, so, I would ask everyone listening to this, if you've got a 1 or 2 sentence definition of turning advice, fiscal literacy into a competitive advantage, put it in comments down below. If you're watching the recording and you're watching this on YouTube, put the recordings down below. But you're not turning advice into a competitive advantage unless someone is being wowed by it. Period. And really the way to wow people is to show the long-term benefits of different strategies. That's where the wow always comes from. Like when it's usually not the transaction, showing them their closing costs, showing them monthly payment, telling them what they qualify for. That's not financial literacy. That's transaction literacy. Financial literacy comes when it's like, oh, here's a way to get a mortgage, prepay it or invest the difference and become debt-free and financially free 10 years earlier, faster than you ever thought you could. So guys, that's the definition. So let's get into how. And I always like, while I'm the facilitator of this, you guys ask each other questions. Hopefully I talk the least for the rest of this call. And James, let's just start with you with how do you do that? Like we got the why. Now, how do you do it? What tools do you use? What tactics do you have? And Trevor, since you train and lead loan officers at scale, we're going to close out with Trevor. How do you teach and train people, and how do you scale this as a branch manager? You'll get lots of talk time in the last 5 minutes or so of this, or 10 minutes. But James, give us a high level on how you do it.
Well, the how, like the tangible deliverable to the borrower, is the mortgage coach total cost analysis report, right? So that's a key component of the literacy conversation and the expansion of people's mortgage shopping process, right? They come to us with a mortgage buying process, and we have to kind of move them onto our process, right? And the total cost analysis is a major part of that. But underneath that is the language we use when we're talking to our prospects, talking to people who are, in the hot seat, trying to figure out how to make this real estate transaction happen or this refinance happen, and make sure they're not leaving money on the table, right? And make sure they're thinking of all the angles. And so really, I think a lot of the language comes from the certified liability training course that we took. We took that, gosh, I've actually taken it twice, because I sort of audited the class when Trevor gave it to some newer people a couple of years ago. And just all of the content in that certified liability analysis, or excuse me, advisor class gives you so much confidence and so much really clear language on how to explain what a 3-sided balance sheet is, how to explain liability asset gap, how to speak to broad strokes around like, okay, where are we going to locate your dollars, right? Real estate the realtor is focused on getting you the best actual property location and space. But my job is to help you locate where do your dollars go to buy this house, how to speak about leverage in a really smart and tangible way, how to speak about all these different things that go into a real estate transaction that most lenders are completely blasting past without identifying major opportunities for people in those areas. So to me, that's the CLA course armed me and arms me with a way of talking to clients that I think really differentiates me. I love it when people come and meet with me and they're like, full disclosure, I'm talking with other lenders, or like, by the way, I've already pre-approved somewhere else. I just wanted to talk. I'm always like, good, I'm glad you're talking to someone else, because I would love your feedback on how similar this is to what you're seeing elsewhere in the marketplace.
And what do they say, James, usually?
They're like, no one ever told me this before. I've done this 3 times. I thought I knew what I was doing. That kind of thing. So yeah, you can really move people into a new dimension with this stuff sometimes.
But you move them to wow, as Dave was saying, and that's the part that makes the job really fulfilling. You know, it's the hard part for you, Trevor, getting out of production because you love the wow. You were so good at
I know.
having that conversation, right?
On the back of my mind, Trevor, I'm always like, man, I wonder if you're just like, I wish I could get back into this.
Sometimes, but I love seeing you do it. I love coaching you to do it, man.
Yeah.
You're doing it amazingly well. I will chime in on that real quick that I'm actually going to go do a talk for James and a whole bunch of real estate professionals that we support and work with. And I'm going to do a mini Borrow Smart University class that Todd gives us when you go through the course. So it's pretty high level, but I did it a few months back to a group of agents. And by the end of that conversation, it was 30 minutes. And I love it when, instead of the consumer, Dave, a bunch of real estate pros that come in thinking they know how all this works. And they're like coming up to me going, oh my God, I have made so many mistakes with how I've borrowed and repaid my mortgages over the years. And I'm like,
it definitely helps. It definitely helps when you put some of this language in the total cost analysis video and send it to your client and copy the agent on it. They are, I've gotten a lot of feedback from agents like, oh, are you going to do one of your James videos? Someone said that to me last week. I had another one. Someone wrote me a letter. I got a letter, a handwritten note to my home this week from a real estate agent, just like, thanks for answering all my questions, And so, yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like I have a position in the marketplace as someone who really knows their stuff. As a result of, really focusing on educating myself. I mean, I'm a real estate investor. I'm an investor myself. I really dig this stuff. And there's a huge gap between most families and families who are pretty deeply engaged in their own personal financial plan with an advisor. And I think the way that I'm able to speak about it is very big picture, very sort of broad strokes. It's just sort of like, well, if you put this money here, it costs this much, because now it's locked into your real estate. But if you took half of that, there's a definite cost to pulling half of that out. And here's in Mortgage Coach, it defines the cost of that over time per month. But if we drop that into your financial plan and assume we can get a compound return on that cash, look at what this does to your net worth over the next 15 years. And it's just the total cost analysis like gives them the visual, and it unlocks the simplicity of financial planning. A lot of people think it's for rich people. A lot of people think it's about stocks, and it sort of is. But I mean, my favorite book it's actually out of print, and it's just right here on my desk because I've given it away so many times, but I found a bunch of them at Powell's. It's this book called Simple Wealth, Inevitable Wealth. Todd, are you familiar with this book?
No.
Oh, it's so good. It's so simple. It's all about just, focus on stocks, dollar cost average, push as much money into it as you can, harness compound effect. And, basically it just integrates with everything you've taught me over the years. It integrates everything Trevor's taught me and Dave has taught me over the years. And it's just, it's called Simple Wealth, Inevitable Wealth. And it talks about the rule of 72. I love teaching people that. It's such an easy thing. And then it just simplifies what needs to be done in a way that most financial advisors, I don't think, talk about the simplicity of it.
Yeah.
Maybe it makes them feel like they're not earning their money if people knew how simple it was. I don't know.
So I think we've got some good high level concepts, guys. And if you're going to listen to this, you've got some tools to do this. Delivering a total cost analysis is essential to delivering an advice-based mortgage experience. Getting trained by Todd and going through the Certified Liability Advisor program is just a must for anyone that wants to be an advisor at the highest level. You want to take a college level class at how to do it. It's a tool, it's a tactic. I want to get some other tools from folks. So Aaron, or not Aaron, but James, give us like in a minute or less the scripting for your value proposition when you have a consumer in front of you and you're letting them know that, hey, I'm not your typical loan officer. Give us like 1 minute of what that might sound like and how you position yourself.
Well, I often tell people when they're looking to make a mortgage decision, you want to make sure you're not leaving money on the table. And I think if you focus on getting the cheapest mortgage, you're opening the door for a lot of potential mistakes. And I've trained myself to help families make great decisions around borrowing and real estate. And my mission is to give you the most competitive financing strategy that really protects your money immediately and over time by making sure we're putting the right down payment, we're locking at the right time, we are integrating the borrowing with your financial plan. And by the way, do you have a financial advisor? And then stop, right? And I ask people if they have a financial advisor, have you put together a will for your family? And are you properly insured, right? And so those are questions I always ask on the front end that I know no one else is asking. And they're what I'm doing is I'm helping them understand that once you have this piece of real estate, all of that needs to be reviewed. And we need to surround you with the right people, and that you need to know what questions to really ask about protecting your family and protecting your money. So that's kind of, that's what makes us different. And, in doing so, this is no longer my conversation with the borrower, but when you can really bring in some other pieces, I've also created opportunity to introduce them to other partners. And that's a huge part of my practice, as well as connecting my clients with other, realtors, financial advisors, estate planning attorneys, accountants, et cetera.
So everyone, just to make sure you got the lesson, when most loan officers differentiate themselves, they may not be saying exactly this, but most of the words include, I close loans fast, it's easy, I've got the best rates. There are transactional promises and value. I've got lots of programs. I'm available 24/7. I've, done X number of homes. When an advisor, when a mortgage coach who's trying to differentiate themselves as an advisor talks, it's about, advice. It's about building wealth. It's about smarter mortgage decisions. It's about coaching you over time. And I would ask anybody listening to this right now to audit. Like, I want you to really think, what am I saying with almost every borrower? And again, everybody's going to be a little unique, a little different when you say it, what you say, but do you have a really strong, I'm an advisor, you're going to get some financial education out of this experience. They've got a way that they say that. So I think it's important.
We had a loan officer in our branch forward an email this week that she used with a client. I'm going to pull it up because it was so good what she said.
We like emails, we like scripts, and actually, why don't we do this? Why don't we? Because I know we've got to wrap this in about 10 minutes, or at least James, you've got to go to another appointment.
I do.
We may let you go, and then we may talk about you a little bit behind your back. But why don't you show a total cost analysis so that people can at least see how you deliver one of those?
All right, fine.
If that email pops up, feel free to
I
show it to us.
just found it.
Show your screen. Show your screen.
All right, I just found the email. Basically, it said, what are you laughing at?
Nothing.
I'm just reading it because it was so good. I'm not the cheapest lender you can likely find.
By the way, we're seeing a diver, so I don't know
Yep.
if that's the right screen.
Well,
that looks like the right screen now.
So these are some visual aids I use. This is, when I have a client, I do a lot of meetings over Zoom now, or just over the phone with screen share. I have this slide on like, I have developed a process that helps you win as a homeowner, that helps you, like, I am devoted to helping you save money and find opportunities in buying the house. So product, down payment, lock timing, cash flow, credit advice, and then of course, all caps, the total cost analysis report. And then the relationship is where I get into the annual Borrow Smart Review, which we've kind of named it the annual review, the Borrow Smart Review. And that's where it really gets into the CLA type stuff. It's not that the CLA value really blossoms later in the relationship, not in getting the mortgage. Sometimes you can be real strategic with how you put someone in a mortgage, but really when you do the follow-up, this is I have a whole other presentation I use for my annual review around what we call the three-sided balance sheet. And this is my like cut and paste graphic design in PowerPoint here, but really it's like, here's your debt, here's your assets. Financial advisor is going to be focused on this. Certified liability advisor is focused on the debts. That's me. And then here's your house. This is where you live. The house is both a debt and an asset at the same time. And so I'm going to kind of lean into that and manage how we're going to repay the debt, how we're going to manage your cash flow, and how we're going to track your equity. And so we go over here. I take a snapshot. I just am asking questions. I use this as a guidepost for me because I can just get to talking, right? So I've learned that if I make little slides, it keeps me on track when I talk to people. And then I just start collecting information. When I'm doing my annual mortgage review, my goal isn't to sell a mortgage. And I also make sure people know that, like, this is not going to be a sales call. This is just a checkup, reconnect, a review. How's life? And let me update my file on you, right? And then I ask them some questions: future cash needs, any plans to remodel, investment property, or buy a vacation home, move up, move out, all these things. And I kind of just make notes of that. And then I focus on these 6 areas of their life. Umbrella coverage is an easy one. Most people don't have it. And if you have more than one piece of real estate, you got to have it. It's just sort of like, that's a no-brainer. Life insurance, disability insurance, also a no-brainer. You got to have some of that. Making sure that they've moved the ball forward since we spoke last on these things. And so that's the value of the annual review. And I think that's why, and then people are so happy after we have this conversation because they've been meaning to do it, and I make it a point to get them scheduled and to have that conversation. And that's when you can say, who else do you know that I should be talking to, right? And that you can just turn it into referrals. So this is, there's just visual aids on my process on point of purchase, but also the annual review.
So I know there's going to be folks that ask for slides, and any of the slides you're willing to share, forward them over to me, or just put them in the file section of our Facebook group if you don't mind.
I made all this in Google Slides. It's so easy just to you just go to you add image from the web, type in the word house, and it gives you all these houses, and you just click it and you slide it in, and you can just make all these things really easily on your own, but I'm happy to share it as well.
All right. Appreciate that. So walk us through one TCA, and then I know you got to jump when you got to jump.
I do have to jump. One TCA. This is one I made today, actually. This is a great example. This guy is relocating to Portland from Austin, Texas. He works for Schwab, and apparently Schwab has a pretty sweet relationship with Rocket Mortgage. And he showed me he's pre-approved with Rocket Mortgage. And he showed me what he had, and he gets 2 points off the rate sheet at Rocket Mortgage, which is very aggressive. And so, but we all know Rocket Mortgage isn't a discount place to get a mortgage. So even 2 points off of Rocket is something I could kind of get a little bit close to, but I went a different direction. And I basically said, okay, this person is just giving you $647,000 at 2.99, just the most you can borrow on a non-jumbo loan. And, it's super cheap. That's their value proposition. And so and they have a house in Texas that's virtually paid off. When they sell it, they're going to free up $500,000. And so I'm showing them here's if you wanted to buy this house with the Rocket Mortgage offer in hand, you're going to need $209,000. Actually, it's $15,000 because the Rocket Mortgage person didn't understand how we do accounting for prepaid property taxes in Oregon. That's a different story. But I said, okay, less down strategy. You can buy it with 10% down, a first and a second mortgage. You can acquire this house with $102,000, which allows you to keep $11,000 in your Schwab account. And then when you sell the Texas house, you can just zero out the second and you're left with a $500,000 mortgage at 3%. And then you can invest the difference. You're going to free up about $800 a month by doing that. And then if you invest all that instead of stuff it all into your real estate equity, you'll create a lot more wealth. You'll be able to pay the house off a lot more quickly. And then I also showed them what it would look like to flip that and have a $265,000 mortgage and a $500,000 second, where they could just really load up and move all their money into the house after they sell the Texas house. And then if you go into the more info into reinvestment, I'm showing them like, okay, just by putting 10% down, you started off by keeping $111,600 out of the house. What's that worth over the next 15 years? It'll double 2 times in 15 years at a 7% return. Then if you sell the Texas house, net 500,000, pay off your 265, you'll add the difference to the 111. Now you've got 346 invested. You freed up $881 a month because that's the cost of this second mortgage. That goes away. And now we're starting with quite a bit more cash at compounding, and we're adding 881 to it over time. Now you've got $1.2 million set aside of liquid cash in 15 years. And if you just took all the 500 from your sale and just loaded it up into your mortgage, it steps on your monthly payment. You have the most cash flow. You have the most ability to save. 1871 is the net difference in this 11.7, in this remaining mortgage compared to what we were also otherwise offering. So now I've saved them 111 on the front end and 1,800 a month that they can then invest. That lowers their, outcome over time, but it's still an option, and they still come out ahead, whatever they prefer. They were used to having a really small, virtually no mortgage right now. So I thought they might lean towards this option. They'd be better off doing that than just getting a basic Rocket mortgage for cheap, right? So we'll see what that goes. I just pitched this to them this morning, so hopefully they will come our way. But I mean, I'm showing them a way to. Let me move my video.
It's an additional $1 million of wealth.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm showing them how to use their dollars more strategically. In 15 years, their net worth will be almost 2.5 million, and 1.2 liquid.
So if you
it's just it's a different conversation. They're talking to a call center, just getting a super basic transaction versus like a strategy that makes them $1 million. So it's pretty powerful. I hope they choose it.
Yeah, no doubt. And if you could forward that total cost analysis over to me, I know a lot of people are going to ask for it.
Okay.
And guys, this is the takeaway from that. Mortgage strategy always beats rate. And that is, Trevor just showed you how he's doing it. We all covered why he's doing it. James, so James, do you got to jump? Because I want to keep going, because I think Trevor and Todd and I have a lot to share. I guess before you do go, if you could just tell us what you think about certified liability advisor, because that is something we're going to wrap up with, because it is something that I'm passionate about. But give us your thoughts on, is that something other loan officers should do?
Absolutely. I think it's not something I brag about. I'm not in the habit of like putting it on my email signature or anything, but I just think it allows me to think really clearly about how to advise families in a way that is a major market differentiator that I'm confident. Like I said, I'm when someone says, "Oh, I'm about to talk to another lender after this," I'm like, "Good, let me know how it goes, because I bet it'll be different than this. So
Entirely
I just-
different conversation.
yeah, I'm just highly confident in my ability to add massive value, and charge a premium and be sleep like a baby every night, like all that can coexist, right?
Well, you're a great leader in the industry, man. I really, really appreciate you. Feel free to jump whenever you got to go. We're going to keep talking.
I do have to go at 1:00. Thanks for everything you do, Dave. Todd, great to see you. Trevor, I'll be talking to you soon, I'm sure.
Bye.
Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
James. See ya.
All right. So I want to make sure we had plenty of time. I think we shared some ideas. People got some scripts. They heard a story and a case. So I think there's a lot of takeaways from this conversation. So Trevor, for anyone that's on this, whether they're an individual person and they just like, how do I become this advisor? Or it's a branch manager on this call, or a regional leader on this call, or a head of production, and they want to build a culture of advisors. What advice do you have for them? And how should they do it?
Yeah, no, the how's key. But I think it starts with fully committing. I had a passion early on back when I knew you and was using Mortgage Coach all the time about fiscal literacy. I knew it was a need. And then I met Todd, Mr. B here, and he just had it all packaged up. I was just like, oh my God, he's packaged up everything I've been trying to figure out how to just fully commit to as my unique value proposition, which is fiscal literacy. And the how is, I think you start by just committing to it. And when I started my team here, I think it was my 2013 epiphany. And I just said, man, I'm going to build a new team. And there's going to be two foundations: borrow smart, fiscal literacy approach to helping families having an impact. And then, as you know, I'm a coach for Todd Duncan. And so high trust selling, right? Really about relationship building and emotional connection. So I've just mirrored those two things together. So I think you got to have a passion for those things first. You better like helping people with money. Secondly, you educate your team. You educate yourself. I mean, I've read a ton of fiscal literacy books, and I know that's the start. But, I flew myself down to Oakland to go through an actual class with Todd, and I had no idea what I was getting into. And, you get a book of 500 pages, and it was transformational. And now it's all online, and so, I'm not going to let people come work for me anymore as a mortgage advisor without going through the course. I'm that passionate about it, because not only do you see a transformation in the loan officer's eyes, like they've never thought about what they do with their own mortgage borrowing this way before, and then they got to go talk to their spouse, and that that creates all kinds of fights. The spouse is like, "What are you talking about? I'm going to pay this thing off as fast as I can." Like, well, let's talk about this first. And then you build it into your training. These are weekly conversations we have with our team. We share success stories. We share success stories with the financial planning community to create meetings there. And I don't know, nobody's talked about really the way it's structured, but there's 7 concepts and 7 steps. But honestly, there's 3 that over the years, it all comes down to, which is safety, liquidity, and return. And so when I tell people what we do is teach you financial planning concepts that have been around forever, can't argue with them, but we show you how to apply them to the debt side of the balance sheet. And they're like, well, what does that mean? I was like, well, all right, you got a borrower coming to you. I'll give you a how-to right now, Dave, real quick. You got a borrower coming to you, and they just sold a house, and they've got $200,000 to put down. What do they normally want to do with that 200 grand? What's their default? Put it all down, right?
Right.
Why wouldn't I? got the cash. It's like, all right, cool. Here's how we're going to walk you through this decision-making process. And this is how I teach the certified liability advisors to have the conversation. There's 3 key, determinations on what to do with your money, any money, whether it's inheritance from grandma or whatever. So let's say you put all 200 grand down in the house versus anywhere else. How safe? Does that increase your financial safety or decrease your financial safety? Like, well, seems safe to me, right? Yeah, it's safe. Okay. It's a very emotional answer, as we all know. That's why they're putting it all down without really understanding the rest. All right. The second key decision is liquidity. Liquidity is how easy you can get to your money. How easily can I access it and have the use and control of my money? So when you put all 200 grand down on this house, will it be easier to get to if you ever need it, or less easy to get to if you ever need it? And what's so cool, and I geek out on this stuff, as Todd knows, but you watch them go from an emotional thought process to a logical thought process in a split second. And now they start leaning forward, like wanting to know more. And you say, well, compared to a savings account, is it easier to get money back out of your house if you ever need it, or harder? Oh, harder. How about stocks? Harder. How about your 401k? Harder. I mean, it's the least liquid place to store money is what you finally get them to realize. And that doesn't mean don't put it all down. I'm just saying you need to understand. Now, rate of return, that's the final piece we need to talk about. And you walk them through a thinking process of what's the rate of return on that 200 grand when you put it down on the house. I mean, you want to optimize, right, your money. And they say, well, real estate went up, 7% last year. Okay, cool. So the house went up 7%. I'm talking about your 200 grand that you're making a decision with. What's going to be the rate of return on that? Well, I won't pay 3%. Okay, yeah, you'll avoid 3%, right? Cost of borrowing. But once it's in there, it feels safe. You're gonna have a heck of a time getting it back out. And you're gonna pay a bunch of fees when you do. What's the return on that money while it sits there? And at the end of the day, for a short story, it's zero. Home equity has zero rate of return. And even for loan officers that come on board, I mean, that's a left hook to the jaw for them. Like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Whoa, 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 whoa. And so I whiteboarded out in 3 steps, and they realized that you got hundreds of thousands of dollars earning zero rate of return. You got to jump through hoops to ever get it back out, because you better qualify. Okay, your credit better be good. Hope you didn't miss any payments. And if you're perfect, I'll give you 80% of your money. I'm gonna keep 20%, for safety as the bank. And that just transforms their whole approach to borrowing and repaying mortgage debt. And from there, it's fun. That's when you dive into Mortgage Coach and you show them what you just walked them through in a real life scenario. Okay, show me what that looks like from a cash flow perspective, all that. So if you want some how-tos, that is how to have the most impactful conversation real quick and rock somebody's world, pattern interrupt, to the nth degree. So I don't know if that was helpful for you, but that is, I get everybody talking like that.
Well, super helpful, and takeaway for anyone listening to this, first you have to have the why. And we teach Mortgage Coach. We start with like, what's your Mortgage Coach why? And if you have a big enough why, a clear enough why, a personal enough why, you're going to get past the pain of change, and you're going to get through all the training to do that. So Todd, why don't you, it's gone a little over, so let's wrap it up in the next 5-ish minutes. But why don't you, share your like, how do you recommend people become advisors? Obviously, part of that is certified liability advisor. So if you could include in your answer, tell people how they can get signed up for that. But what at a high level, you've mentored hundreds, actually thousands of loan officers into becoming advisors. What's your direction and what's your how?
Good question. One thing I want to reflect that Trevor did there is people appreciate what they discover more than what you tell them. And you'll notice he was asking them questions. And in the process of asking them questions, they're discovering what they don't know. And when they discover that they don't know something, they want to know more. And you're the person asking the question. So you're there to fill that particular gap. And I think that's one of the things that he was doing so naturally that I just wanted to reflect back, because so many people want to learn this to tell people what to do. And that's like the white belt stage of this. The black belt stage is when you understand it and you want to bring people to their own sort of boundary of ignorance, as a lot of Catholic school teachers used to say. I push out the boundary of ignorance. Well, you're really just simply allowing someone to realize, I don't know the answer. We used to say, if what you thought to be true about your mortgage wasn't, when would you want to know about it? How would you answer that question? Well, if I didn't know it to be, well, I want to know that right now. Okay, well, let's talk, right? And he laid out a great foundation. But if you're going to start doing this,
real quick.
Yeah, yeah.
I just want to make sure I got that quote because I'm gonna actually post that on social media today.
Good.
And I'll give you credit. I won't make it mine.
Okay, sounds good.
But people appreciate what they discover more than what you tell them. Is that
Absolutely.
okay?
Absolutely.
So guys, I hope everybody wrote that down, and then don't just know it. Like actually audit yourself. Like, hey, at the end of a call, did I create the wow? Did they discover the wow, or did I just tell them the wow? And there's always a way of kind of doing both, showing them, but them discovering. So
Absolutely.
anyways, keep going with your answer. I just want to make sure I got it right.
Yeah, and then for people that are new to this, ask yourself, would you take your own financial advice? Like, are you confident? I mean, you may be confident that you're borrowing, but are you borrowing smart? I've had so many lenders, as James said, I started realizing I was doing stuff wrong, right? And you're in the lending business, right? That's what you do. And we're really saying that holistically, the three-sided balance sheet is their assets or liabilities, and there's real estate, which James referred to as something that real estate, that house is an asset and a liability, and always will be. Even if you pay it off, it's still a liability, right? It needs care and feeding and taxes and insurance and stuff. It's always a liability, yet it's also potentially an asset. So, if you had to get started and you're nervous saying, I don't know how to do this, learn to do it for yourself, because if you only do it for yourself, it's transformative for you. Your own confidence in being able to manage your own financial well-being, and know that even as a lender, I'm making the right borrowing decisions. I'm choosing the terms in which, as Trevor was saying, I repay the debt. Because if someone says, no, if a wife says to the husbands, we used to say, not to gender stereotype, but the wife used words of home and the husband used words of house. And you can ignore that and step right by it. But house is illogical. It's gutters, it's mortgage, it's appreciation. Home is the experience you have living in a house. And we talk about that in the very first chapter of the book. You've got to understand what you're doing, and that you're on both sides of the balance sheet. You're on both sides of the brain. You're talking about the house, and you're talking about the experience in the house, which is a home. And you want to learn, the financial impact that you have in helping someone make good financial decisions is not taking away the experience of being in a home, it's amplifying it. If I can show you how to pay a house off 10 years earlier because you avoid making a financial mistake, or I can help you avoid, as I've seen people do, putting an inheritance into the house and then losing the job, and then losing the house to foreclosure and realizing liquidity the wrong way, which is 60 miles an hour hitting a wall. That's not when you want to learn about liquidity. You want to learn about that, early in your career if you can. But just learn this stuff for yourself, and then you won't have any choice but to share it. You'll just feel like, I need to share this with other people because I want them to understand these concepts and ideas and strategies. Because again, as James said, the mortgage part is really the easy part once you've been, doing it for a while. And that's when you start to see the wow happen, when people go, wow, I didn't realize I could pay off my house that fast by having money over here, in a side fund growing that I would use to pay off the house. Or, for some people, paying off the house isn't the issue. It's not having a mortgage payment. And you can do that very quickly by putting a lump sum away and drawing that money out of that lump sum and paying the house that way. Yeah.
So we've got to wrap this up.
Yep.
How can people get signed up for certified liability advisor? What's the website? I know there's a special offer for mortgage coaches. Tell us how to get it.
Yeah. Go to borrowsmartuniversity.com, borrowsmartuniversity.com. And right now we've got a $500 off discount. That's going through the end of the year, and then that's going away. So be aware of that. If you're interested in that, take advantage of it now, because we're going to keep that up through the end of the year. So it's a pretty big opportunity.
Register by then, Todd, or get through the course by then?
They just have to buy before the end of the year.
Okay. Sign up for it. And do they need to use the MC VIP code?
Yes. Use the MC VIP code if you like the discount. If you just like to make a donation, an extra $500 to support, my family, that's great. But I'd recommend the MC VIP if you want to get the discount.
MC VIP.
VIP.
Borrowsmart.com. Get after it, guys.
No, borrowsmartuniversity.com. Borrowsmart University.
Borrowsmart University. And we'll put a link down below, everybody.
Yeah.
So, guys, we got to wrap this up. Thank you for your time. Trevor, I know how busy you are. Not saying you're not busy, Todd, but
All good.
thanks for making time. Thanks for getting James to do this. And this call is a wrap, everybody. Give it a like down below if you got some value, like it on social media so that we get more, let the algorithms work and get more views on this thing. And if you're watching this in YouTube and you have questions, Todd is a regular in the mortgage coach community, trying to get Trevor to be more of a regular. If we didn't get it answered now, we'll either answer it via chat or we'll answer it in the next interview. Take care, everybody.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks. See you.